I think it's safe to say that a large majority of Outlast villains are pretty shocking, but none quite like the electrical baton-wielding madman that is Leland Coyle. And in this video, we wanted to do a much more focused explanation of who he is exactly, and what his backstory was before becoming the main enemy in the Snitches Get Stitches Trial in the Murkoff Lathe program. So let's get into it. As you could probably imagine, life was not particularly great for Coyle as a youth. It can be found in some documents that there was some anecdotal evidence that showed that Coyle may have abused animals as a child, a regular occurring link that can be found among many serial killers in real life, as well as Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy, to name a few. We can also read that he might have suffered from SA as a child, which, as you could imagine, sets a very rough beginning to Coyle's life. As he became a teenager, he was recruited into the KKK and even married at the young age of 19. It was, however, at this age that Coyle seemingly took his acts of violence beyond animals when his wife died only 6 months after his marriage, after she fell down some stairs. To avoid investigation, Coyle joined the US Marines and served 2 years in the Pacific Theater, having 3 confirmed enemy kills, and there were even rumours that he had killed 2 people inside of his own unit during his short service. He would eventually be honourably discharged and returned to Oklahoma and resumed his antics in the KKK again before joining Blackwell, Oklahoma Police Force in 1947. From everything that you can find within the documents, it is noted that Coyle was actually regarded to be a very capable and valued police officer during his time. But as you could imagine, violence continued to follow him, as he once again married his second wife before extorting her entire family. That same family ends up dead in an electrical fire. And it feels silly to put 2 and 2 together in this instance, but since we know that Coyle is incredibly fond of electricity, I think it's pretty obvious what happened in this circumstance. After this, his second wife fled to Chicago, but was later found dead from natural causes, and her remains were recovered between 900 and 2,000 blocks of Consta Avenue. It's insinuated that there was likely a police cover-up in order to hide the murder of Coyle's second wife, since it would look really bad on the department. Not long after, Coyle went on to marry a third time, after being promoted to sergeant in the force. His third wife once again ended up dead 6 months after the marriage, to an apparent self-death due to gunshot wounds to her head. And to top all of this off, the third wife's family also miraculously died within the same year as well. I feel at this stage, if you were the Oklahoma Police Department, and I understand that they are likely to be corrupt since the implications of the second wife, but surely you would come to a general understanding that this guy is a liability. During his time in the police force, he made enormous amounts of profit from the exploitation of prison labour, extortion, and civil forfeiture, receiving multiple commendations for his troubles. And due to this notoriety, he had a very inflated view of his own image, considering himself vital to history. But what ended up helping Coyle so much throughout this very violent period of his life was that he was considered by almost all people that knew him as being extremely charismatic, being one of the most popular police officers among his peers. However, the cracks did begin to show, as the Murkoff surveillance team noted watching Sergeant Coyle standing in a field watching a lightning storm on 5 separate occasions during their surveillance period. Coyle's antics during this caused Murkoff to become interested in possibly recruiting him for their brand new Lathe program, which caused Clyde Perry to attempt to approach Coyle in order to interview him personally. Using the pretense of bribery, Perry managed to arrange a meeting with Sergeant Coyle at a bar on Route 177, since Coyle was already well known and liked by bar staff and customers. It turns out that Perry greatly misjudged Coyle's ability to see through the BS, and the conversation quickly turned violent. Perry noted that during the moment that Coyle attacked him, he had the feeling of being a crippled mouse used as a plaything by a tomcat. Just to put into perspective the physical strength that Coyle had, even going as far to say that if Coyle had intended to end his life, he wouldn't be writing this letter today. Despite having 2 broken fingers, a lot of bruising, and peeing blood, he recommended Coyle as a perfect candidate for Project Lathe. It's important to make the distinction between the Coyle we see within the Snitches Get Stitches trial and the one that initially went into Project Lathe. Now, it's safe to say that Coyle has always been an individual that is quick to violence, but what transpired at Project Lathe made him into even more of a frightening individual, since Coyle was one of the ex-pop during the first iteration of Project Lathe in 1956. This group of reagents, the same that held the likes of Coyle, would go on to be considered by Murkoff as failures. This is due to the first generation of reagents, consisting primarily of mentally ill patients of asylums or the clinically ill, with the biggest supplier of reagents comes from Mount Massive Hospital, the same one seen in Outlast 1. Coyle in particular was seen as already having a complex personality, filled with trauma and pain. And since Murkoff was attempting to create trauma and pain, he and many of the other reagents were considered to be unfit reagents for the program. But as Dr. Easterman was planning his necessary changes for the second iteration of the Lathe program, he figured that instead of disposing of the previous generation of reagents, he could instead use them to create more deadly trial environment to better test the new generation of reagents. Coyle was considered to become a prime asset, a reagent that is recognized as an important person within the experimental population, of which Murkoff will create a new facility that will emulate their former lifestyles, allowing the now twisted mind of Coyle to believe that he is actually the governing force of the Snitches Get Stitches facility. And since he believes that every person is born guilty, so he has no problem enforcing his justice on the newer reagents, which is exactly what Murkoff wants. One thing that is not properly explained is Coyle's apparent fascination with electricity, outside the observation that he watches lightning storms and used it to murder his second wife's family. But there are multiple scenes and imagery that can be seen while doing the Snitches Get Stitches trial, which might suggest he's even aroused by electricity. We won't show the scenes, since YouTube, but the ones I'm referring to are during the hallucinations that the reagent has on their way to the trial and while he is killing the guy outside the security room. But regardless, that is a little bit of a character breakdown on the prime asset of Outlast trials, Leland Coyle. Please let us know in the comments down below if I missed anything or what your personal thoughts are regarding the character. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to like the video and subscribe for more content in the future. Until next time, peace.